So we're here to talk about not just smarter buildings, but these smarter buildings that have turned into living systems. These living systems that we reside in, that we work in, that we transport through. And another way you could put it, you could say it's a nervous system. And sometimes nervous systems, just like humans, they have blind spots. These nervous systems, they are powered by IoT. They are fueled by the convergence of facilities and security. And so those two things coming together, we have really blurred lines right now. And those blurred lines, I would even say that they are the old boundaries that we may have once had. Everything's being blurred like Robin Thicke. Hopefully you guys know that song. No? Sing it? You don't want that. I could clap though. But because of this, because everything is expanding and evolving, these bring new questions. Questions like, who owns it? Who pays for it? Questions like, who do you trust? Not if you get hacked, but as a former FBI forensic analyst, it's when you get hacked and how you respond to that. And so that's going to be the heartbeat of today's conversation, where we talk about culture and cost and control. It's what we try to do as much as possible. And so even with the rise of self-healing buildings with digital twins, they produce these spaces now that don't just run, but no, these spaces, they're adapting. And so we'll talk about how leaders design. We'll talk about how they manage. We'll talk about how they protect these environments that are smarter, that are safer, that are more sustainable. And so, as you know, these things, they aren't happening within a vacuum. It's happening within community. Communities like IOBSE and ASIS, where they are raising the bar, helping us to evolve our mind and adapt our mind so that we can elevate how we approach these topics. Also, with that, we have the technology with the innovation like Dyken and Pelco's Halo Smart Sensors. These things that help us reimagine what's possible, not in the future, but what's possible right now. And so what I would like to do, gentlemen, if you could just take 30 seconds to say who you are, what you do, and then we'll dive into the conversation of building for the future. Who's going to go first?
That was all the way that, yeah. So thanks for being here. Okay. Shout out to Daikin, Culper. You guys, what you're doing is awesome. So thanks for having us here today. My name is Mikhail Van Wyk with Fort Liberty out in San Diego. And I am a building VEC program lead at Fort Liberty. It's building information modeling, virtual design construction manager. And we're evolving into the digital twin space. So looking forward to having more chats about that today.
Good morning. Thank you, invitation here involved. My name is Bert Riggs from the DC area. I currently serve president of the International Organization of Black Security Executives, IOBSE. My career has been largely political security, corporate security, some federal investigations. And most of my career was over 20 years with 50 on our area, probably in the minus. So,
Mike Davis, just like to say thanks also to the sponsors here. It's good to get these groups together and have these kind of discussions. So I'm the business development manager for the sensor division of Motorola Solutions. I've been with the company for about 7 years. I've been in the security industry for over 30 years. Security industry, I thought I was getting out, but then they pulled me back in. So Halo was just one of those things when I got a chance to look at it and see what it is. I had to be a part of it. So I'll be happy to share you that.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming out. Hi, I'm Arcalis Robertson, District Manager for Dyken Apply for the Gulf Coast region of Mississippi and Louisiana. I'm going to yield my time to tell the story about New Orleans, a level set where we are. So back in the early 2000s, when the rest of America was making this digital / integrated push, we got hit by Hurricane Katrina. So our story was one of recovery where we were trying to just get buildings back open. So we missed that digital age that most cities experience. I mean, I spent a lot of time in California and New York in my prior company that I worked for, doing a lot of technology, I would say evolving technology in buildings. There is a huge gap here in New Orleans. A lot of our HVAC is still pneumatics. I can't tell you one building that has converged network in this entire city. A lot of these security protocols, if it's not something federally mandated or something driven by some other standard like CISA or something alike, then likely there's a lot of cyber vulnerability here. So I'm hoping, like the 49ers are back in the day, that you guys are the 26ers that come to the city and discover the digital gold mine that we are, and we bring this together, and we do a lot of convergence that we plan with Dyken and the rest of the Motorola Pelco and Halo team. So, but thanks for coming out.
Thank you, gentlemen. So what I like to do often when doing a podcast or talking to a new audience, I don't like to assume. So I want to kind of frame the conversation a little bit. So when we say that the building of the future, what is the first thing that comes to mind? Could it be safety or sustainability, profitability? What are your thoughts? We're going to start with you, Mike.
AI. I think it's simple. What we're trying to accomplish is all of those things. It is sustainability, but we all know the dollar drives so much, right? So when we're thinking about how can we improve our buildings, sustainability is important, right? Efficiencies are important. Safety is important. Security is important. All these things are important. And what our focus is collecting the data that can then be used in AI for those different applications. Mm-hmm. So that's, I think, where we have our eye on the ball is data collection, data analytics, and then where it applies from that.
Bert, what do you think?
When I think about what is the building of the future from a security perspective, I know we're going to get a little more into partnerships that we talk further, but think a little bit about user experience, right? So as we get these modern these conveniences and these luxuries that come with the technology and the types of furniture, everything that we have in these new buildings, you really find, especially now in a world where everybody doesn't necessarily have to come there every day. So what are you doing to make the home office a place that they want to be, or at least they're happy to be on the days that they're required to be there, right? So I think about the user experience, and from a security perspective, where the user experience comes in is, well, we mentioned AI earlier, mm-hmm. and then all those other things, wayfinding, all these types of things in the buildings. What are you doing to make the security still, to maximize the effectiveness of it, but to make it as convenient, user-friendly, not intimidating, and welcoming if possible.
Thoughts on Kairos?
Yeah, I like to piggyback on what the two previous gentlemen said, especially with the AI and the user experience. I think those merged together are definitely huge. And that's where we were at Dyken. I mean, we're known as the chiller guys around the world. We made this move to add building automation systems with our own controls, OEM by Honeywell and powered by Dyken, where now we bring a convergence of that information. And there was always a gap. I'm a building automation system chiller guy, so there was always this huge gap where people were afraid of building automation systems because they feared that IT didn't speak the same language as the building automation system guys. Well, where we are now, we can take that data that's at the building automation system level, harden it, move it up to where IT understands it. Now we've closed that gap in the AI and user experience because now building owners are able to get data and make data-driven decisions now that they never had before, using both the AI and enhancing the user experience. So great answer.
So last up, you're very special though.
So yeah, I agree and back up everything you just said, 100%. Looking at construction firstly, I'm thinking about that because what we do there is we bring everyone together. We give them the accessibility to that same information at the same time. And I think that's what we really need. We need unified programs. We need unified software. Looking at CSOCs, looking at operators. When there's an incident, when there's an event, wouldn't it be great if everyone got alerted at the same time? And bringing that digital twin, bringing that space together where you have all these disciplines together and you have real life data, real life reporting in real time. I think that's it. So accessibility is super important, and I think if we're getting that message at the same time, is kind of the and obviously having this automated as well. So having the what the digital twin could be able to report to you, hey guys, that this is about to fail. Maybe just be proactive instead of reactive. So maybe something on my IoT sensors that it's about to fail. So you're seeing that live flicker. Let's get out there. Let's look at it. Let's replace it. Instead of that downtime, no one wants downtime on anything like that. So getting ahead of that, getting in front of that, and connecting everyone together at the same time. That's where I see this going, and I think the benefits of it are, and having AI help you automate that as well is something that we're looking into the future here. Making sure that if we could have a self-healing build it, right? So it's one thing for me to see it on the sensors or blip on the report and say, wow, you've got some issues coming up over here. But imagine AI would filter that where you come up with some options, connect to your contractors list and say, hey, we've got 3 contractors on the list here. These are the issues. Here's 3 quotes or 3 proposals from them. What do you want to do? And you just click OK. The team's going to be out there the next day fixing those devices. And so you can actually automate that. Say lowest bid or fastest time, whatever whatever you prefer, and have that building start heating itself.
So I have a question for you. You brought it up. I didn't bring it up, so this is your fault. So once again, big proponent of definitions and defining what we're talking about. So you said digital twins, right? Can you tell us what is a digital twin in the most simplistic way possible?
A digital twin is a digital assets of a real life building or project infrastructure. So it's a 3D living, breathing digital asset.
Okay. I think that was simplistic enough. My guy, you delivered. All right. So follow-up question to that. And everyone feel free to chime in. Are digital twins just simulations, or will they actually make our buildings self-healing? Will they actually make our buildings safer?
Yeah, great question. So yes to both. You could actually simulate a real life event and see how the system functions during that event to see what failures occur during that event. And then again, being proactive about what you simulated that, get the results from that, and then, let's see how we can counter that, right? So the best part about digital is look at the new car crash simulations, right? If you've seen that, they're actually doing that digital now. Go to BMW factory in Germany, they actually ram cars into walls, and they actually simulate that real life. But we're actually simulating those kind of things in the digital space here. And why? Because it's more cost effective. It's 98% accurate, and same thing with security. You've got physical things. You've got car crash going into that, or someone's trying to jump over. We can simulate that, and then see what the system does when that happens, and how it works, how it performs. Maybe it outperforms, maybe it doesn't perform, man. And getting those ideas. Also, there's a lot more you can do. I mean, there's some use cases where it's let's say you've got security. We've got all the field of views. We've got everything lined out. You've got a new security folk coming, to the guard. You put the VR headset on them. You go through a walkthrough with them, and you show them all the devices are. Maybe you go to a stadium. So to walk through the whole entire stadium with that photo may take you 2 or 3 days. You just teleport to each location. You can look in each device, say, this is camera, what. These are the ones you're going to be responsible for. There's really a lot of use cases where we're just getting to the tip of the iceberg right now.
Yeah. So, Arcalis, I have a question for you. From a facilities perspective, when you hear digital twin, you hear the definition of it, how does that apply to a facilities and making it all the things from more sustainable to more insight?
I feel like you're reading my mind just because the definition of facility is a little different. So I think a lot of these technologies that we call
I got you.
fall detection diagnostics and other, I feel like the facilities HVAC world and building automation system controls, we actually stole that software or that, I guess, premise from Watson. The actual doctor tool that actually, if you go to the doctor, they're probably going to talk to Watson and they come back to you and they're telling them what's wrong with you. So that was our approach. So for example, we use digital twin in our space is like for a retrofit, for example, a piece of equipment that's been out there 25 years. We can retrofit it by adding a remote monitoring panel and start really looking at that data through either this Tritium, Niagara, or whatever tool we use. We can assess and predict breakdowns. So back in the day, it was always this break fix paradigm where the only time we showed up is when something is broken and, we're here to charge you now, Mr. Customer. But now we can better predict, and now we can better stock the shelves on parts and make the repair before there's a breakdown to reduce the downtime. So definitely a little different for the facilities when it comes to digital twin, but still the same backbone in it all. But
So Bert, when you hear digital twin, and I'm moving on to a different question, but I'm curious actually from both of your perspectives. So maybe in 30 seconds, if you could answer these questions, both of you. So because digital twin, and just from a leadership kind of perspective, right, of having that insight into what that building is and how it's more so being adaptive. Yeah, these walls kind of stand still. Well, the exterior walls stand still, but the interior walls are always moving, right? And so just from a leadership perspective through security, when you hear digital twin, how can that be more insightful and helpful?
I'll answer that from the Halo Motorola perspective here. Digital twin is about risk mitigation, right? I want to be able to do something in a digital world and try it out before I'm doing it in the real world, spending actual dollars. So this is about risk mitigation. The digital side works as well as the data you give it. So what we're all about is bringing that data, whether it's the real side or the digital side, bringing that data. Once you have the data, you can make a better decision. So we're a part of that data beef.
I'm thinking of that as you're talking, Xander, and asking the question from physical security perspective, from the corporate security group. What would you do with digital twin? I'm always thinking about from a corporate security perspective is you're always having to prove what your value add is often in the security department. I don't know how many people in the crowd that worked inside the corporate security environment. You're embedded in a company as a security group, and you don't automatically bring the same value to them. So, we don't bring the same value as the legal department, as the accounting folks, as the people who sell whatever the products, what the products are, who bring in the money. So as a security team, you're always having to prove what this value is that you have, because when nothing is going wrong, people start to forget that the value is in the mitigation and the elimination of the threats and things like that. So I think about the uses, you think about what type of presentations could you do to, obviously, you talk about what officers could do with these type security officers on the ground. What could you do with educating the rest of the people in the company by creating some things that are a little bit user friendly? They didn't necessarily get to see every bit in security you get to see. But what could you do in terms of training, showing off some of the capabilities and the aptitude that the security team has? What could you do when it comes to briefing the C-suite? And you're in there, or the board, and you're in there and you get to show them. You're not just pulling up slides, need decks with high charts and, hey, this month we did this and, what up. But to actually be able to put on a little bit of the show to execs and using a digital twin, say, as the foundation of that brief statement, I think it changed the whole image profile of the security program.
So something comes to mind as all of you guys were speaking, and it's really hard for me not to interrupt people. I'm a bad problem at it, but I'm doing better. I'm working towards it. So nothing is working in silo anymore. Everything is converging, right? And so the reason that we put it or have the language, using the language of a building being a nervous system, if that is true, the controls that go with it within this nervous system, what happens when that nervous system is hacked? So we took the building, we turned it into a digital twin. What happens when it's had. Thoughts? Anyone?
So I'm a remediator. I've done that for a while now. I mean, more than 15 years in the building automation system space. Typically, we unplug it. Sick. But at that point, and this goes back, like, I'm not going to geek out on this, but there was a very popular company that's on the West Coast in Redmond, Washington. Don't want to call them out. They had this thing called remote desktop protocol. They thought it was genius back in the day. Like, people be honest about accessing systems. They didn't realize that they just gave birth to the hackers in this world. So that's been my pain to close that. I want to get port numbers and stuff. But it's been my pain to close that port over the years. But the way we heal that process is we always have a backup of the system that we've restored over time. We remove all of the potential piracy that just happened in the system, and we typically restore it and add more protections there with possibly changing the owner's access to the system where it's single sign-on or some other hardened, like OA2 or something like that. But we really harden their system to make it, from an IT perspective, one of the hardened systems on the market.
I'll add to that. What we really have to think about here is not what if, it's when. Exactly. This is going to happen. Until we, get further down the road in technology, this is just our reality right now. It's probably going to happen. What are you going to do when it does happen? We always think about people getting into our network. A lot of times you can air gap different parts of your network. You want to have physical separation from something, so there's no possible way to get in there. But ultimately, you're going to have somebody hack into your system. It's what are you going to do when that happens? It's just creating the right plan.
So with both of those answers, the thought to me comes, what do you think may be the biggest barrier, right? So, hey, we have this proposal of a digital twin. This is something that is possible. We've presented it to the people. What do you think is the biggest barrier of that being adapted within enterprises, government spaces, et cetera? Could it be culture? Could it be cost? Both? Something different? Yeah.
Yeah, I think the number one thing is having one single source of truth. If you look at it today, whether you're an operator, security guard, whatever that may look like to you, what are you really looking at? Maybe you got a PMS system, access control system. You've got maybe some line diagram as built documents to look at that are probably outdated. That's the reality. So why not have something that's living and breathing today with real life analytics that's reporting to you on a daily basis that everyone has access to at the same time? That's true. So there's no guesswork. We know that's what's going on. So unifying it, giving access to everybody at the same time, and having that single source of truth. You can link your access control systems, your VMS systems, all this to your digital twin, which is your real-time visibility, where you could see what's going on in the building, can see who's coming in, who's going out, door held open. You've set up your system in a way on how you would like it to sail roads. So having that plus a digital twin where you can see how things are functioning, how they're operating, you're proactive about replacing items and upgrading them. And so that single source of truth is helpful. And I think that's the real thing here is something that the industry is missing today. I mean, again, go to one of your sites now, Google projects. Most toys are out of days, and that's kind of tough.
If I can add, so I couldn't agree with you more, right? I mean, you have the data. You are able to replicate real-life situations without spending the time, the effort, and the money. The problem is us, right? It's us adapting to a new technology and us being able to trust that new technology, make that leap of faith, get into that new technology. And that's we're the barrier. I mean, there's no reason not to. If at certain scale, there's no reason not to. It's us being still doing what we've always done.
Yeah.
I can add to that. I would say back in the early 2000s, the building-wide system integration plan scared the bejesus out of customers on cost. So I think a lot of people in their head are still caught up in what that cost was in the early 2000s with all these proprietary systems. Now we have APIs and we have other ways of easily doing integrations that now that cost is seamlessly, significantly reduced to the cost of implementing a single building automation system. And maybe your existing building automation system can capture a lot of that integration to bring in security, fire, HVAC under one single pane of glass where you can see it all. But I think now the hurdle is walking back some of that cost or that sticker shock we created in the early 2000s, late 90s on what building-wide system integration used to look like.
So, once again, because everything that all of you guys are saying brings back to the point for me that nothing operates within silos now. Everything is converged. And so, as you just mentioned, APIs, my background is mostly cybersecurity. And so those just ring bells for me, right? And because of that, and we have this digital backbone, who actually owns this? Because I was telling Mikhail before we started that I don't have a word for it. Once I do, I will trademark it and hopefully make money off it. But we call them video management systems, but they are not video management systems anymore. I mean, they do that in conjunction to everything else, and it touches the network and exposes everything. So who actually owns this? Is it CSOs? Is it facilities? Is it IT?
Well, who owns the actual property, right? Who owns the building? Who owns, the physical, the physical tech? At least from our perspective, we hand it over to the owner so that they can manage it. They can, keep all their security teams, their maintenance teams. We can also just manage on behalf of it. We can even just manage a little bit from take a cent, they do 90%, vice versa. It really depends on what they want. A lot of the customers just want to be handled, and a lot of them want their teams to be running these twins. So, but yeah, I guess it really depends, what that looks like. But I would say it should be the owner's, digital twin. They own the actual building, so we just provide a service or we provide support. And it's quite, it's quite significant. You need to keep that digital twin up. Like, you got to be on top of it. You can't just hand over a digital twin and think it's just going to operate forever. I mean, we're talking about physical objects here. These things get, whether they break, even the IoT sensors, everything needs to be replaced. So, there's something about keeping the physical items, up to spec as well. So, yeah, I would say it's the owner, and so they should be the ones who have their digital twin, and they want to service. They want to do that. Reganking.
I think it's a easy question that does not have any answer. I think it varies based on the environment and how each company is set up. But I also know if you think about from security perspectives, where it was cameras, right, that were standalone, and you were reporting, for those of us who remember this, we're reporting to VHS.
Jeez. Forensics on that.
So that was all secure, right? Then the camera started riding on the net. So now there's this essential partnership with the technologies, right? And we start getting into HD cameras and all development on the camera side of things. Same with the alarm system, the card reader systems. So regardless of what the org charts say, who sits where, there has to be the partnership between facilities, technology, and security, right? And from one company to another, that may look different, but as a security team, you don't really have the option of running all that stuff without partnering with those who are running the technology, or who are the technology backbone of the company. So it's kind of, as who owns it. I think I would say in my experience, often who would own the plans if they weren't digital? It would be like the facility. Right? Yeah. But now we're talking about it being a digital twin. It's like, well, that's not. Most likely that's the technology post wheelhouse to kind of make sure it's running. So I think it's one of those things where it just requires collaboration. I don't know.
Very much so. Okay.
I think that there are multiple stakeholders. There's just got to be.
Yeah.
So the teams, the companies that we work with that are successful with our products, they'll put together a team. There has to be an internal team. You look at the features on a Halo, right? There's vaping detection, and then there's aggression and gunshot and all these environmental things all in one sensor. That goes across multiple areas in an organization. So we need to be working with them, and it needs to be a team. Of course, there has to be a leader of that team. That's typically somebody on the technology side, maybe IT.
So this is like a confession moment here from
Oh, man, here we go.
all you facilities director. For the last 30 years, I have been teaching you and your building owner that IT should have a budget. Shout out to my IT guy over here. So he's going to win on this one. I think the future is facilities reporting to IT. And I say that with all the data being converged to something that can be managed and predict. IT, which essentially has the most budget in almost every building that I have ever worked with. Yep. Those guys will lead the way in the future and help those facilities guys make more data-driven decisions versus someone actually listening for a sound or maybe actually using tools to assess a piece of equipment. IT will let them know and lead the way on how facilities are managed and maintained.
So two follow-up questions there.
Mm-hmm.
Because each of you pointed out, once again, is going to take a team from multiple different areas of a business, right? And oftentimes, each area of a business speaks a different language. My acronym means something totally different than your acronym, right? And so how do we fix, well, first question, do you think that that is true, that we speak a different language? And if that is true, how do we fix that?
I think it's a lot about the solution, right? Regardless of the path to that solution, we got to talk about that in solution and work our way backwards.
Okay.
So if we work our way backwards, we can get past those acronyms. We can get past that language barrier. Sometimes it can be difficult to get those people in the room together and to get them communicating with one another. But once we do, if we can start from that problem, that issue that we want to address and work our way backwards, we can overcome that issue.
Yeah, that's why some of the people that we invited here today, like Job One represented in the back, some of the facilities directors,
Shout out.
some of these other programs here, Motorola Solutions. The future of the workforce will include the technology along with the physical skill as well. And that's how we close that barrier. I agree with you that when I sit in a room with IT people and facilities guys, they have no idea what a single sign-on is over here. And these guys have no idea what a MUX programming point is for the build automation system.
You just lost me there.
Yeah, so my point is the future, the next generation will have that combined. And that's what part of what we want to achieve today. That workforce that can support what we're doing. I was at the Energy Smart meeting the other day. I know I'm taking a left, like my grandfather here. But one of the things that was discussed here was that the city of New Orleans is driving building owners to have to benchmark all of their energy usage. There's only a small group of people in this city that do benchmarking. I mean, we do it automatically using AI, but building that workforce is essential now.
Yeah.
We need those this next generation to include that, and that entails facilities directors mixed with an IT mindset from the next generation of field and facility managers.
So everyone's going to learn a little bit more about me right now. Just a tad.
Scary.
Here we go. So one of my favorite movies is Back to the Future. Came out in 1985, we're marking 40 years. They re-released it within theaters. So with framing it that way, let's hop into DeLorean, right? Let's go 10 years into the future, 2035. What would you bet on being, or let me rephrase it this way. What's one technology that you bet on being in every building in 2035?
Well, that's an easy one for me, right? you see that did you do it or not? Yeah. So what we see and what our vision is from the Halo team here specifically is that it's about data capture, data analytics, and data-based decision making And we want to be able to provide all that data. You can see some of the conversations we've had about Halo with lots of you guys. Cameras are your eyes.
Yeah.
And we're the rest of those senses. We can detect all those other things, all those gases, all those environmentals, all those physicals, all those audios. We can detect all that, run our analytics, and provide that data. So to get real-time data, and by the way, shout out to all my telco brethren, what the data you can capture from video these days is phenomenal. Video camera today is not just for, hey, who broke into my building yesterday. Today it's proactive, it's predictive, it's giving you the ability to look at and extract data and information that we never thought possible. 10 years into the future, all the different sensors, and cameras are just another sensor, all the different sensors are going to be capturing and pulling in data for analytics, and the data that it's going to be able to present to those of us who run buildings and make decisions about building operations is going to be a light year from where it is.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't take 10 years, but I see a security cup, right?
Yeah.
Right, very good point. Yeah, that's that. Why do we have fire codes, right? Why do we have all these other codes, but we don't have these security codes? So hopefully it doesn't take 10 years.
Sure.
It's super important, right? Look around us today. Look on the news. Look what's happening out there. Not going to go into it, but you can see what's happening in the world. It's dangerous. It's scary. How do we prevent that from happening? We start with codes. Let's put some codes in place, right? What does that mean? That means every building, a school, a church, every building has a particular set of codes that'll, there would be the new standing to prevent certain things. We have all the technologies, right? We have everything we need today to make that possible. Just need one person with that idea to make a difference. But I think a whole team of us could really make that happen. Again, for me, security is about protecting people, property, and data. It's a passion of mine, right? You might not think, you just, designing security systems, but what does it do for you? It repels people from doing things. They see a camera in the street, they're like, oh, they're doing anything right here. So indirectly you're saving lives. And with gunshot detection, with all these analytics, with all this stuff, you can predict responses, rapid responses. You can, get things done faster than you would normally. You can literally save lives. So there's something to be said about that. And hopefully, we can get up to par with that. Even in the building code. I don't know if anyone knows security in the building code. Yeah, didn't think so. So we need to fix that, right? Because there should be a set of standards for that. As I was developing the service at my company, I was looking for who's the top expert at security design. What standards are there? What do I need to comply with? And it just came out to facility owners and utility owners and their standards. NERC, SIP, FERC, all these kinds of standards. But, that's for utilities. Utilities have standards for those kinds of things, like minimum requirement standards. But, it doesn't say it needs to do this, needs to have 2 rounds of perimeter intrusion detection, needs to have motion sensors, needs to have this in order to be compliant with the state, with federal. I'm not seeing any of that today. Hopefully we can make that change in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Because it's not just going to say one loss, it's going to say hundreds of thousands.
Bert, what do you think? 10 years from now, 2035, what's one technology you could bet that you would bet would be in every building?
It's all about where biometrics will be in the next 10 years, right? Mm-hmm. And I think a lot that goes on biometrics is completely connected to that corporate culture. It's really making people comfortable with it. I remember probably, might have been as much as 16 years ago when, the early stages of data center company, rectal scanner, things like that. And people were scared of that. I won't do that. My thing with you on, what's it? Yeah. How's these words? Looking into my brain. Or what's going on? And now, those are comfortable with it. And in 10 years from now, if you think about who's in the workforce now, so someone coming out now is 22-ish, right? In 10 years, okay, now they're 32. most likely they don't have the same hangups that someone who's been in the workforce now for a few decades and wasn't necessarily born into that.
Yeah.
A lot of what's going to what is this doing? Why do you need this? Why do you need to turn on the near field communication on the cell phone? Why do you, whatever was hanging, so why you use the internet and all these? I think 10 years from now, we had a different, so a lot term of workforce combined with the technological developments. We probably don't have a lot more going on 5 metrics of the building, whether that means you don't have to badge anywhere because everywhere you go, the facial recognition stuff is see that play or whatever that is. I think the biometrics 10 years from now will be embedded in a lot of work there.
It's kind of hard to choose one. It really is. But if I can have two, maybe I might stop on one because I might get lost in thought.
All right, let's go with the one.
But I think we live in an era now where you look around, the top 10 richest people in this world, they don't sell Teslas, they don't sell Facebooks or computers. They're selling data. They're harvesting and selling data. So I think we'll see buildings 10 years from now make a light year move starting now to actually start harvesting their data. And we get over this fake term of data lake. And we finally start applying the data that we're harvesting to something that's measurable to create energy saving, better use of doors. I mean, digital twin will allow you to predict how many times you can open a door before it actually absolutely fails. So we're here now with that technology. I think we start now. We start to sprint and we start to move forward in 10 years where we also have a better user experience that now the environment is controlled with cell phone.
Yeah.
With users having access to more in the building to get more in the building for themselves.
So I want to open it up to everybody else for a chance to ask a question if you like. No, not you. All right, go ahead.
A little bit. Just because it's really, you all have your favorite movies. Who watched Die Hard? I mean, that was the work.
Oh, yeah.
But you looked at that building and what the future would be, right? And how long ago was that when we created? And we thought we'd all be here now. But I love what Bert says about the experience. And I heard a story recently about an active shooter incident at Hudson Yards that we all didn't hear about in the news within the same exact day. An hour later, Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And that incident was a risk leader, Tim Winsell, was there. And he's in the C-suite with a bunch of folks. And the building over actually was doing a drill of active shooter. So although it was a drill for everyone in the room that was uninformed, it became a huge personal impact of experience. So I want to just understand from Bert, how do we leverage digital twin to do these drills for folks to be ready but not be impacted? And what Tim went on to say is in that one day, the amount of people who are rushed to the hospital for panic and anxiety attacks and now permanent PTSD from not being able to understand what was going on in the building, huge. So between the Kyle and Bert, how do we take that practice of what we do in mitigating risk and help people feel safe as we're trying to make sure that, all things are status quo?
So I immediately had two aspects of that before I stop. The training aspect internally, but also what you can do with the first responders in your area by having that type of a capability. So I think of the years that I spent moving from different locations at different campuses and then getting there and trying to build a relationship with law enforcement, with the fire department, with those folks. And one specific time, having a brand new complex in an area where it was very high profile and everybody was excited that this new complex would be there. And to reach out to law enforcement, fire department, and introduce yourself. And often, unless you're getting hold of that community policing officer or someone like that, it's kind of hard to crack that first layer of just reaching out and saying, hey, this is who I am, or we're going to set up company. Talk to, lieutenant or whoever. That's not always an easy barrier to kind of get through. But I find a lot of success, even maybe the first kind of few interactions, they weren't extremely open because they're just very busy often. But when I said, hey, we got brand new building, and they're aware it's new complex in your community, to say, we'd welcome you guys to do some drill work here on the weekend if you want to. They're really, they got the job. We'll show you everything. We'll give you the CAD drawings, that they will put together some fill bags, just like you have the lockbox with Firebar and everything. We'll put some access badges, put all these things in there, right? Now look at that and say, if you're using digital twin, you don't have to create these manual things. They can, yeah, sure, they're still coming to do drills if they want to, but what would it look like if your first responders had files or access to digital twin information for all the major complexes in their communities, right?
Yeah.
So that I see that on that side. Now internally when it comes to training, so again, yeah, I think you could probably create, and you try to talk a little more to this. You make these user friendly, layman's term type versions of the digital twin products that can be shared with the employee base in ways that not only they could easily understand, but also like could be impressed and say, wow, this is what the people who take care of us in our company are doing, right? When you work in, say, like cybersecurity or, the folks who run the network, everybody's aware because they understand that this isn't in place, like everything could go down in a second. And then as you mentioned earlier, even when it is in place, it can go down in a second, right? But they understand why that's in place. People don't always understand why everything's here is in place. But I think something like this, again, an easily digested version for the masses. You're wowing them, since that whole the dog, the pony show for the masses and all that, but it's also like, okay, the different educational opportunity. So it's easily digested.
Thanks, Berg. So, we can't really prevent someone from coming in and doing something bad, right? So, but the question is, how do we react? How do we respond? And I think, the first thing is obviously training personnel on that facility, on the property to react to certain events. You also have a list of what happens when that happens. Who do they call? What happens with that? Those systems are already automated today. You see it with your VMS platforms, or, the stuff that's out there, the technology exists today, where you can send it straight to the police department, or your first responders. So you have a list. You can, again, tie the loop with them, right? Get to know them better in the area, so they can respond faster. As far as mitigating goes, you can set up protocols within the building that if this happens, then that door shuts, then that thing closes, then, and so you can install those IoT sensors, you can install halos, you can install gunshot detection devices, you can install whatever it is you're trying to mitigate. We have the technology that's really accessible today for those things. So as far as mitigating that, find a lockout plan, find whatever may work in that situation. If someone's coming to your front and just you see them, with a weapon or, ill intent, we can identify that with analytics, and then we could shut it down from there. So you just need to figure out what the response would be, and you can simulate that in training with the digital twin. So, I think that's the best part is you can train your personnel in a real one-to-one scale environment and actually have that simulation run. It might be a rattlesnake. It might be a rattlesnake coming in the front door. What do we do when that thing comes? Like, have you ever tried to catch a rattlesnake? Because it's deadly, right? So you kind of scared of doing it, but in a simulation, you can. It's okay. If it bites you, it's fine, right? And so it's the same thing. You just run that simulation back. It's where you get really good at practicing that thing. For sure, in real life, it's going to be different. There's going to be that fight or flight, but I think the more you practice something, the more you do something, the better you get at it, even when things get tough. So that's what I would say is come up with a response mechanism that's as fast as possible, come down to the lockdown plan, get the technologists in place to identify these issues, and they respond as fast as possible.
Whether you're doing, it's digital twin stuff, but whether you're letting them just be tour the builds, 20 plus years of experience in the corporate here now, is it all ends on what it being the first responders and you haven't come to the done. So that will always, kind of set the tone for whatever they're trying to talk about.
When you're writing that protocol, rattlesnake, makes up a cockroach at the Josephina. He said about I learned how to handle a cockroach in Europe.
Saddle the cockroaches. Sheesh. Right here. Perfect. We got one more time for one question.
Quick question. This year is kind of strange for you as you did the topics or how is and understanding all this kind of thought process. So I want to give a quick summary of it.
Okay. Sure. I'll be the runner.
Be loud. I've never accused of not being loud. So I have a question, and maybe for the panelists here, answer. As everybody's here seeing IoT devices produce more data, cameras produce more data, and then the group's idea is that AI is going to automate this data. What I'm really concerned about is where does this data go? And when it comes to authorities or legal bodies that help us, right, basically avert these kind of issues, first responders. What I'm seeing or what I'm not hearing is there a code, like a building code? Is there a methodology? Is there a subset that all of us manufacturers can send? Because when you're talking about critical videos, critical information of gunshot detection, mass notice, because the market is the way it is in the United States and North America, which is very capitalistic, and the companies are trying to make money on that, this is really, whoever comes the first iteration of this is going to try to get that lane, right? And so I don't see, coming from the industry and just looking out, say, I don't see this openness of like an ONDIT, right? Like a code that everybody has to follow. So does anybody on the panel have been involved in things where this kind of code or this I don't mean what it's right.
Yeah, no, I think it's a
right? Something that everybody follows so that it's not kind of positioned. I see that this positioning happening a lot with a lot of the big manufacturers. Obviously, they have their own way. They do the influence with the authorities or the municipalities or the first responder. And that becomes system, but then it wedges out other options, right? So if you're on a different system, you can't necessarily go on that option. So I'd really be interested in seeing how this data is going to be handled.
But I would say our federal government does a great job at putting together standards that I think the public to usually follow. I would recommend like CISA, some people call it CISAs. It's about Homeland Security. They are awesome at setting the standard, but they'll also let you know there's some vulnerability out there. Some best practices that I've learned from customers over the years and their standards, this might be a new term to some people, containerization. Containerization now allows you to put all your applications and your data all in one off-prem location in the cloud. Docker is probably the best containerization site out there. They're the only one doing it, honestly. It might have a monopoly on it now, but that's been the best protection I've seen when we typically use mirroring servers locally on-prem. When now the bonus is we have all the applications in one digital container out in the cloud. That makes life so much easier to manage, not only in the usage, access, but also security, keeping everything updated and well maintained. So, but C stuff for sure.
Yeah, there are some federal standards that are out there. Now, these aren't enforced. They're usually recommendations, but it is really important for people, also, don't hesitate to look for that consultant. Don't hesitate to look for those people who know and have been in this business for fun. The birds of the world are going to be invaluable in how you could find your own.
one more question, 2 more questions, 3. Oh man, guys, how much time do we have? We have time? The longer you're asking questions.
No. So my question is very simple. So as I hear all of you talk about this infrastructure, and as a consultant, I'm always talking to clients about all your sensors, what you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you touch, what you feel. And then how is that aligned as far as you're thinking, as we talk about the future, we had this discussion about the infrastructure ecosystems that operate within it, what we see, what we hear, whatever, especially when it comes by new employees and existing employees and training those people to do those things. So I'm just interested in hearing your ideas around the training that comes along with those different ecosystem concepts.
I'll just give the brief answer there. So, what we have to think of when we're talking about training to the least common denominator is what are we really solving for, and really just communicating that basic information, because there's going to be information overload at that level. They're coming in new. They're not experienced, not technical, don't have the depth. But when we're doing that planning and we're doing that system design, we need to be planning for that least common denominator.
Do you still have a question?
Yeah, I still have a question. We have an old building that was built in 1963. So what we're doing is now we're trying to bring that building up to a different kind of standard. And I hear we're talking about twinning, digital twinning, all of these advanced standards that our building know not. So to make a long story short, what would be, I guess, the advice of the recommendation as to how should we proceed? Because we're just now putting a new fire alarm and evacuation system on the street, and we need to know how we should proceed from an IT and security and HVAC perspective as to how we bring these technologies together and make a more adaptable and integrated facility that will, in fact, be able to exist in an intelligent and secure manner.
But it's true, nonetheless, or not taking the record being a little bit constant, like how they have been upgrade this and upgrade that, especially if you're in a place where you've got these aspects of it's in store for that you can only do so much to it. And then maybe what you did it there, but a little bit up the though. So that's all good. But from physical, for feeling serious security side of things, I think you're always you're problem solved, right? So you're like, okay, but what are we working with? What are our options? And what is it that the public will take to easiest? Nothing beyond that. That's where I refer to the folks who work with parks. Yeah.
Do you have any drawings for that building?
So, I mean, look, you got some drawings, so it would be a great place to start. If not, you could do LiDAR scanning to get a precision model, sub-millimeter precision. You could take that scan to burn. Most architectural firms are doing this today anyway, since the early 2000s. They'd help you out. Get that HVAC system, get the fire system, get the security system. Once you've got that, you got to figure out what problems you're trying to solve. How do you want your system to respond? That's going to come from you. Those are the questions you think about. But again, we have all the information, we have all the technology to make that work. It's just how do you want it to work, and everything's there to make it happen. So if you know specifically what you want, those are the questions I would ask: is how would you like it to perform, and then you would just design it accordingly, right? And I just wanted to say, digital twins exist today with the NEP. Mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire, HVAC. It's not just security. In fact, security, I don't know if it even really exists today. I've only heard of some use cases. I've heard of airports. I've heard of stadiums. And so we're trying to bring it into the commercial space. We're trying to bring it out we're trying to make security a big part of that, should be a part of that. And what's great about it is, I've got some ideas myself, but I'm going to be asking a lot of people questions because I'm not developing it for myself. We're developing it for the security industry. So feedback would always be great. But you have a single source of truth digital twin. You can see the conduits, you can see the cable trays, the J hooks, you can see the infrastructure in the PAM specs for low grade and the walls. You can see all of that stuff. You can also see the devices. You can click on that little sensor. You can click on that camera. You can see the live stream view. It'll take you straight to your VMS platform. There's so many use cases around the digital twin, but it is, what problem do you want to solve? We're making this and we're building this to solve problems, not just for the fun of it, right? So, so I just say, think about what you really want in your building. How do you want it to perform? And let's talk about that.
Yeah, look down, Jesse. So you know I never go aware. You see me pull up with this guy right here. Dude, they already just know we're coming in to put the hero sensors in, putting you in all those things, and those places where the cameras can go. Especially when you talk about, I know what type of residents you have in your building, those that probably help with evacuate. Some of these sensors, one thing we didn't mention about Halo sensor, that it has the ability to see if there's someone still in your space. I mean, there's oxen surrounded his way. So when you see us pull out, we're coming to take care of you. Actually, Delta Corey, I didn't realize you were making this real with fire and the other parts. So thanks for sharing that. We'll talk.
When I think of the old buildings, and I've gone into whole buildings, so I feel you. And we did a huge retrofit with security and fire. But you know where it really starts? You have to have a very open, really good control system, because that's going to be the brains of everything to pull everything together. And they retrofit old buildings like this all tight. It has to be different. They have to use conduit. They can make it pretty. But we're doing that.
Yeah. And I'll give you a little good is, if you would have been incrementally making updates over the years, you would have gone through every iteration of technology, right? But you can just leap over, LPE 1, 2, 3, 4, and jump to 5, because the technology that's out today is going to be vastly superior to what was 4 or 5 years ago. So at least what you're going to be starting to introduce to your building today will be a light year ahead of what you might have had with a couple of years today.
You can't see from years, so instead of having that using the traditional on network thermostat, we're using good automation system. We would scrap that and just use the Halo in the space where we can get what we came there for from good automation system side, the temperature. But for the rest of the system, you can see if there's someone smoking in the room, someone vaping, or I hate to say dead, and if someone is laying dormant for a long period of time, that you would know that man down in there. You might want to, I won't finish that.
Yep, you're on.
Okay, so nationwide, there's hundreds of thousands of boots on the ground security folks that work within this system. How does this impact the companies that employ them? And when I say impact, what skill set is needed for this next generation of these folks, and how much time these companies have to actually prepare with this new way?
So I had that conversation with somebody yesterday, one of the large job course companies, and think about the traditional model. The dark force is higher at entry level, right? So coast officers or entrance officers, retail, the law enforcement officers there, and say in a corporate space where you could say do a large footprint, we've got a large count, a lot of team members there. Some of them get promoted to shift supervisor, and then some other level supervisor. And eventually, they demonstrated these leadership skills, they got their aptitudes, and now they get pulled into, say, like the SOC, right? But now they're being taught all these different systems, right? And like once upon a time, you're in a row, and you're monitoring the radio trap or roll radio, by the way, or you're looking at the camera monitors and all those types of things. And then as the technology improves, they're very watching. Now you're acknowledging the alarms on the screen with a mouse or whatever the case may be. So I think as you continue that, there's always going to be the opportunity to bring in entry level team members. But now I think with security, we as a security community, you now have the opportunity to bring in professionals who already are strong in what they do in some other area, right? So you can now bring in people who already have been performers, maybe in the tech space, but they bring that expertise into security. I had an experience of we built a threat fusion center, right? And around that time, that was right around the time where the pool of candidates were that pool was a lot of folks who had degrees in these newly created threat fusion type degrees, these intel gathering type degrees, right? So I think for the guard course companies, there's an opportunity, right? They call it a challenge, they thought opportunity. It's an opportunity to integrate these new technologies and maybe work with the vendors, work with other folks to create training programs so that when you are still bringing in entry level people, and often in security, though, a lot of the entry level folks are very, very young, right? Some of them might come late high school degree. So there's an opportunity there to help transform what the entry level workforce looks like in the security industry, right? Not just looking at it as all that. We're eliminating the opportunities for the folks who have no technical background, who don't have a lot of work experience. I think you look at it as there's opportunity here for us to be on the leading edge as a guard force company and work with the right people to create these training programs so that when we're bringing people in, we're preparing these opportunities. And when we're building, we're building resiliency into our workforce.
Yeah, we're not just watching videos on how to do that thing to get trained up, right? When you start your job, usually it's like, okay, well, we want you to do it this way, right? Watch these videos, but we can actually simulate those things now. I think the first case I saw ever in my life was Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A had VRs where they would train employees on how to move around and how to do every little thing. And the best part is you mitigate the risk. You mitigate the risk of getting burnt by oil, falling on something, dropping that thing. And so if you look at it from the security aspects, same thing would apply. So you can actually put those people in those situations. Maybe it's a high intense situation, right? You can put them in that, and then they don't have that fear because they know they were going to be okay, right? And so they can figure out how to do that thing or whatever it is, that how they need to respond to that event, and we can simulate that for them. So getting them trained up faster, getting them more efficient faster. I mean, just think about that on cost savings, right? If someone is to come in now and start their job or get employed, maybe they take 2 to 3 weeks to get up to speed. Imagine it was just a few days, right? And so that efficiency piece is there. So just want to add that.
Yeah. And one quick piece of advice, and remember I work for Motorola here. Involve the technology manufacturer, because nobody knows more about that equipment than they do. And the further you step away from that, the more high level your knowledge becomes. And so as a company like Motorola, we want to be involved with our users. We want to understand, and we want to make sure that your problem is getting solved with the technology. So don't be afraid. Work with your integration partners, work with your Daikins, but pull in the manufacturers so they can help make sure that equipment and that technology is to your needs.
Yeah, and as someone that does security drawings almost every day, we've got over 80 A&E partners, architectural engineering partners. We work extremely close and extremely well with security integrators who spec the products and recommend them to our clients, the end users. But we don't just trust and believe and rely on them. We trust but verify. We take that to the manufacturer. We say, hey, what do you think about this? Is this how you intended the system to work? Is there a better way we can do this? It's not always about your ROI on less devices. It's about less surprises. So
To give you a little insight into probably how I think and how I approach my place in my career in the security industry is understanding that the opportunity there to train people on new things and to transform what entry level means in the garbage I do. It's also to understand that it is a profound, tremendous blessing to be able to equip the next wave of the leaders, send them on their way to do other great things, knowing that, maybe you, a foundation, and they provide that support. A lot of people are offended. Somebody uses a resignation letter and say, yeah, I do your job. Doing things like this, equipping that next wave of leaders with this type of information, understand what needs to collaborate, these types of efforts and the carters and all that. Because you're preparing the next wave of leaders They do whatever other great things they can do at the next rate. I heard that's up.
Can I ask you a crowd question?
Sure.
So two profound things happened is there. I saw the end of AOL being sunset, and that's just remarkable to think that's how we used to surf the web.
Yep.
But also, the term dumb phone was added to Webster's dictionary, and I thought that was remarkable. This sentence. So I'm just curious to see a show of hands. Who actually works in a dumb building? And when I say a dumb building, I mean a building that has no ability to harvest data and share with you what's happening in the building. Just raise your hands or
I know you're building too.
So I guess my thought is for yourselves to ask yourself why do I still working on dumb building? Not that you should walk away and put your job. What I mean is the facilities team are pushing this to the next level. How it makes the occupants' lives a whole lot easier to exist in that building and make your day-to-day a functional workday instead of some of the challenges that you make because there's not many data-driven decisions to be made. Just curious. Death to the dumb building, Steve.
Is that a question back there?
Kabul, you brought up that I wasn't going to keep on you, however, you yourself may be. You rewrite your workforce set, kept talking about the entry level workforce sets, and I think my bet on a number of different industry. With that being said, how will you all collaborate in the whole to bring everything that you're looking at that you have for services, and how will you use that entry level as you keep saying entry level, what does that look like? Because the field-based trades are already 30% behind. I'm saying that with the job, we just had the conversation earlier this morning, the job scores the trades being pushed out of the American job centers into the community college. Individuals are not going into the community college. I see, even with degrees that have been in their field for years, may have major pivot into hand-on trades, different things along the line, because it's more needed in this industry in today's society. With government shutdown, different things on the line. What would that look like for they can train and how will we utilize for that train? Because it could go outside of the trade school, the job can as well as that comes from, and how will you get that out for the masses that actually need?
So let me try to understand. Kind of two questions. Who we were referring to, and also how we get it, like who's going to do the training, how we get that out. I think the who, yeah, you make a great point, which is the times are requiring that a lot of people are being active in ways that they didn't expect, that we didn't expect to have to be. I think, and I think it's a similar conversation we've had around like AI. There are people like, well, AI can take all jobs, but it will take some jobs. But there always will be the necessity for those who understand those processes and oversee those and look for the opportunities to still create the jobs for the other opportunities or jobs and say like AI. So I think this is the same thing. I don't think in the security world there ever will be a time when we don't have the physical presence of the officers or, even in some environments, receptionists who are security professionals, but their function is hospitality because they're color facing, that they are security professionals. I don't think we're ever going to get rid of that. I think the human interaction is important. I think the ultimate redundancy when we talk about all these technology things is still to have a person in certain places. So I think outside of that, yeah, there will be changes. I think we're going to continue to see changes, and some of them old people kind of changes you like in terms of what the job market was like and what the availability is. I think that those are some things we have to follow the trends and do research and try to be predictive in our approach. But as far as the training goes, I love everything we talk about in terms of the partnership. So for me, I am sitting in a space where I am looking at what the workforce is in my organization, or even what the contract security company is providing to me. The best decision for me is, can I create those training programs in-house, right? So here's a good example, and it's a lower tech example, but I think it can be applicable to what we're talking about today with Alamo High Tech. I came in the end. I fell to Border Security. A lot of people did. I didn't know Border Security well, but I got on a contract with a guard force company. Was placed at a certain company, and found out what the corporate security did. And because of some of the other background I had, they gave me special tasks. And then I'm working with it 2 and 3 days a week when I'm not on post. And now I'm updating policies and all that good stuff. I'm doing background investigation, which I'd done before. And I was the first person to do that on the contract. Over 5, 10, 15 years, that grew into what was called the professional services team, PSC. To that, well, I'm not with that organization anymore. They still have about 25, 28 contract positions that overwhelmingly started off as post officers to now the background investigations, lost some of the canvas, card readers, all that stuff, policies and procedures, all these other things, right? So I think building a model where you can train the house, you would have these things together in-house so that when the people come in, starting off in the earliest phases of their career, where, again, you've collaborated with the right people, you brought in the experts in their fields to create the in-house training program for your organization. So I hope that answers the question.
It does, and it speaks exactly to what I was thinking in regards to in-house workforce for each of the organizations. So that way you are trained specifically to what it is that your organization or your entity actually need. And a lot of organizations have gotten away from that, whereas you're just taking someone off of the street and they'll do a 30 to 3-month trial period in regards to that training. But if you had them in an in-house training situation, then you know they're being trained specifically to what it is that they're going to go directly to a guy for. So as something so really being looked at as an organization in each industry itself. Because, like, say, you're training that person, so what that is, that the job that they're going straight to.
It's a win-win. I actually had this conversation with one of the C-suite folks at one of the larger guard force companies who I worked with when he was with another company. And, for like 20 years or so, we worked with that company. And as we created this PST, the win for them is they were providing contractors to a client that they weren't doing anywhere else. They didn't have people with background checks and working on the card readers, like camera. They'd have that at any other site. So we were kind of like the prototype for them developing that for their company. But also, even if it's like the contractor, I'm in DC, so you do have a lot of government entities where I grew up in an environment where people openly talk poorly about contractors versus employees, right? When you create a program like we did, they're a part of, you're always aware of Coca-Cola, the Cone Point, and all that, but in a general sense, they're part of the team. They're part of the family. And when you have contract team members who see growth, who see a roadmap for growth, to stay at the same client site for 10, 15 years, that's a win.
So I think that what we heard today, it is ridiculously clear that the building of the future isn't just about technology, but it is about the leadership. It's about the culture. It's about the community and who you're going to trust when you need someone to trust. And so having organizations like IOBSE and ASIS and all the different type of organizations that are out there, it allows us to power the people. It reminds us to power the people and to powwow together. And when we have innovators like Dyken and like Holly, you're a jewel. And not just you, but the Halo Smart Sensor is also a jewel, not just her. But pulling all those things together, it shows us that when we have vision and when technology aligns, that we can do remarkable things. And so I do want to first say thank you to the panelists and all your insights that you gave to us today. I think the Q&A went way longer than I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to churn out questions myself. And I want to thank all of you because you made this very robust. We could have just ate and slept because that's what happens when you feed people. So I would say, or behoove rather, let's continue the conversation with wherever that we're going to, whether it's within our companies, whether it's in the teams that we are individually, or even in homes, because we are always not just elevating, but we are always impacting and influencing someone. And so what you've learned today, things that may have opened your eyes just a little bit, you can take that and apply it within whatever relationship that you have and whatever conversations that you have. Not just about security within a building, but security in general, just because of the day and times that we live in. So please stay connected. You can find me on LinkedIn as Xander Alexander, trying to bring all things security. And you have Josephine and Holly, and like, dude, I think this was really good this morning. Probably the best thing that I went to this week at GSX, but that's just me. So kudos. Thanks for putting it together, Holly and Josephine, and I hope that you guys enjoy the rest of your time in New Orleans if you don't live here. Cheers.